Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new session with Rights and Responsibilities Awareness Initiative. Today, we are talking about a very important and sensitive topic. We are talking about youth and social media, precisely how to keep your kids safe while they are navigating online. We are lucky to have Kelly Wang, Master of Education student and researcher from Ontario Tech University, with us to present this important topic. Thank you very much, Kelly, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for your wonderful introduction, Haitham, and hello and good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to have you join me tonight. So for a brief introduction to start things off then, as Haitham said, I'm Kelly Wang. I'm a Master of Arts in Education student at Ontario Tech University. And tonight I'll be speaking to you about a topic that's a big passion of mine, and it's also a big part of my research, and that is youth and social media. So specifically keeping your kids and teens safe online. Now, I chose to use the words kids and teens in the title because we've seen in recent years a rising number of young children using the internet, and I do want to address that in this presentation. So here's going to be our agenda for tonight. I'll begin by discussing what social media is, and we'll take a look at some of the most popular platforms. I'll then dive into some potential dangers that your children could face while being active on social media, and these include things like scams, strangers, and inappropriate content. I'll then discuss how to use social media for good, which is a big part of my research, and then we'll wrap it up. And I'll be sharing some additional resources at the end as well. And we'll jump right in. But before we do that, I'll just introduce myself again a bit more. So my name is Kelly Wang, and I'm a Master of Arts in Education student at Ontario Tech University. I'm also a journalist at a London news station called 980 CFPL. I'm a research assistant at the university's STEAM 3D Maker Lab, and I'm also a tutor for reading and writing. I also volunteer on 2 nonprofits, one of them being the RRAI, and I also develop curriculum for Low Entropy, which is a nonprofit based in BC. So I'm very passionate towards education, media, and that's why I love social media and checking out how youth are using it. And that's exactly what my personal research is on. My thesis explores social media, specifically TikTok, and how youth are using the platform to advocate for issues that they care about. And this is all a big part of digital citizenship, which is the idea of navigating our digital environments in a way that's safe and responsible, which we all know is not always the case, especially with social media. And that's why I wanted to do this session, so we can explore the current landscape of popular platforms and kind of go through some of the things that kids and teens are being exposed to online today. And we'll begin by looking at these social media platforms. So social media are digital platforms that allow its users to network and connect. Users can create content and consume each other's content. And this includes popular networks like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, some newer ones like TikTok as well. There are other platforms that count as social media, like, for example, YouTube and WhatsApp. However, the ones we're going to be talking about tonight are more social networking platforms, such as these ones. So these ones are some of the most popular ones that I'm sure a lot of you have seen or use on a regular basis. From left to right, they are oldest to newest. So we've got Facebook right on the left here. It was launched back in 2004 with 1.5 billion active users. We've got Twitter, launched in 2006 with 450 million active users. Instagram launched in 2010 with 1.4 billion active users. Snapchat launched in 2011 with 363 million active users, and TikTok, which is quite new, launched in 2016, but already with 1 billion users. And of these, Facebook has the highest number of active users, though platforms like Snapchat and TikTok are more popular with youth. So looking at these statistics, we can see that children or youth are very much active users of social media. In fact, 90% of 13 to 17-year-olds are active on at least one social media platform in the US, And the most popular platform is YouTube, and the second is TikTok, with about 67% of youth using it. Kids also tend to start using social media at an early age, with the average being 12.6 years old. But just because kids are on social media early does not mean that they always like it, because 41% of youth have reported having had bad experiences. And these can be anything from cyberbullying to experiencing gossip, having their pictures or info posted without their consent, getting in trouble with their parents, stuff like that. And finally, the average adult spends around an hour and 40 minutes a day on social media. However, kids and teens tend to spend more time on social media, with about 38% of teens spending over 5 hours a day on social media, and with 14% spending over 8 hours a day. So it is very, very, very time consuming. Now let's dive into some potential dangers that your kids may experience while using social media. We'll look at 4 categories: strangers, scams, sextortions, and sexual and inappropriate content. Starting off with strangers. The thing with real life strangers is that they can take a look at you and know very little, but online they can know so much more. Every user, depending on what platform you use, but every user can see your username and name and profile photo. And platforms like TikTok and Twitter and Instagram can also give you the option to write a biography or bio. And you'll see people listing out a lot of information about themselves and their bios for all to see. And this could include your age, your hometown, what school you go to, your birthday, your relationship status. So by looking at an online version of you or your profile, strangers can know a lot more about you than just seeing you in real life, for instance. And depending on the platform, strangers can also reach out to your kids via messages. And in these messages, they can text whatever they want. They can send them photos or videos, links to inappropriate content or scam websites. They can even copy your kid's account and duplicate it and pretend to be them. And if that happens, they can do a lot at this stage. They can pretend to be them, message people that your children knows, and do whatever they want, really. It's very much out of your control. And the scary thing is 29% of youth have reported being stalked or contacted by a stranger, and around 43% of kids ages 8 to 13, so very young, are talking to people that they don't know online. And this includes both chatting on social media and also gaming platforms, with some research stating that kids as young as 5 years old are chatting with strangers online. Here's an example of a website. It's not a social media platform, but I just had to put it in here. This website is called OMEGLE, and its literal purpose is to talk to strangers online. So you have the option to communicate through text or video. And from my personal observation of just watching OMEGLE prank videos on YouTube, there's a decent number of youth using it to video chat with strangers, which is, of course, a huge concern for any parent. It's free to use and easily accessible, so I do want to throw it in here for parents to be aware of. Not a social media platform, but it is a website that's easily accessible and free to use. In terms of dealing with strangers online, there are some old rules, if you will, that have updated with newer perspectives just because social media is changing so rapidly. So an old rule may be, don't talk to strangers. Well, sadly, that's kind of inevitable. But you can tell your kids to not converse with somebody that they don't know. So no contacting them up front, no replying if they contact you first, and to notify you if somebody is acting weird online towards them. Another thing that parents may say is, all strangers are bad. Well, it could be true that anybody could have the wrong intentions when interacting with a minor online, but you can always remind your kids to not engage with someone unless they're 100% sure it's them and not a fake account, for instance, and certainly not a stranger. So next up, I want to take a look at some scams that your kids may be exposed to while browsing online on social media. And I've divided this into 4 sections. So financial scams, data scams, romance scams, and sextortions, which will get its own portion later on because that is a very, very severe and important topic. So starting off with financial scams, which are not very common among youth. They're more popular among adults and seniors. However, I do want to note it here just in case. So if somebody is giving away a free gift card and asking you to send some info, it's probably a scam. If somebody is asking you to buy a gift card for them, that would be suspicious too. If somebody is asking you for money to support their investment or give your credit card number for them for literally any reason, those are all big red flags. This is not social media related, but I do want to emphasize that if somebody is asking you to buy a gift card for them, that is very suspicious, because in my personal life, that has happened twice. A professor of mine back in college once asked a student to buy a gift card for him for his nephew's birthday, but that ended up being a scam. They somehow got in contact with his email, they logged in, pretended to be him, and sent out a bunch of those messages. The nonprofit that I volunteer with, the other one, they are dealing with a situation where one of their volunteers got scammed by the executive director, even though it was not her, in a very similar situation. So it's very dangerous that strangers can literally pretend to be someone that your child knows and trusts to gain their trust in order to scam them. When it comes to data, it's not really so much a scam in itself. However, it could be used for the wrong thing. For instance, big data collection, where social media platforms collect a ton of information from a large portion of its users to figure out what certain demographics are like and what they might be interested in. And that could lead to really big data breaches, like what was discovered in 2019, where 533 million Facebook users had personal data lifted in a breach. And that included stuff like their phone numbers, their names, their locations, and emails, and other details. There's also a lack of effort on consent. Now, technically, users are agreeing to have their data be collected and sometimes shared. When signing up for any form of social media, you have to click the I agree to the terms and conditions box. But let's be honest here, none of us really reads it. In fact, for those ages 18 to 34, 97% agree to the conditions before reading them. And these companies know, and they know that their consumers, especially younger consumers, aren't fully aware of what types of data are being collected or even distributed. And finally, selling user data is also another potential threat. Companies like Facebook and Instagram, for instance, can make revenue by selling user data to data collection companies. And this is something that has raised controversy, especially with Facebook. Facebook states in its terms that it does not sell data, but instead it allows advertisers to pay them to show us personalized ads. However, there are reports from 2018 of internal emails from Facebook stating it sells user data for 10 cents per user per year. So we're not too sure about that. Moving on to romance scams, which again, not very popular among youth per se. They're way more popular among older adults and seniors. However, I do want to note it here as well. If your child meets someone online and they start conversing right away and they very quickly bond and fall in love, and the other person starts asking for money, that is a huge red flag, no matter how old you are, really. And it can really happen on any platform, not just dating apps. And this is kind of interesting. So sugar daddy offers are another thing that I've personally noticed on Instagram. And I actually got an offer this afternoon, so I decided to add it into this slide with a screenshot. It's not my first time getting an offer like this. It's always older men seeking younger women. I've never taken up on any offers, so I can't say it's 100% a scam. However, I am not taking any risks, and I hope that you'll remind your daughters to not as well. So some tips for dealing with scams and scammers. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And that still very much stands to this day. But if you do see something that seems too epic and you're very interested, you can always tell your kids to double check on their own first. They can ask for you for advice and for a second piece of opinion, and also an adult opinion. And also just remind them that some risks are just not worth taking. It's important for kids to understand that, especially in an online world where everything can seem so perfect and nice and wonderful, and have it be the absolute opposite. I remember when I was a teen, my parents always said to me to never use any real information online. So, use a fake name and a picture of something else, sort of thing. But it can feel kind of awkward doing so when your peers all use their real names and real photos. So if your kids want to be active online, you can talk to them about finding ways to protect their identity as much as possible, like not sharing their last names and not providing any unnecessary information, like how old they are and what school they go to. All right, next up, I would like to talk about sextortions, which I did include in the scam section, but I really wanted to dedicate a bit more time to really dig deeper into this topic because it is very serious, especially for teen boys. Boys tend to be more targeted than girls. So sextortion is a lot like extortion, which is the practice of obtaining something, especially money, through force or threats. So for example, for extortion, examples could be ransomware attacks, threatening to expose an affair or to injure a person or property. Sextortion, on the other hand, is when somebody online threatens to send a sexual image or video of you to other people if you don't pay them or provide more sexual content. And if this goes on for long enough, it can lead to sex trafficking. I would like to show a quick 3-minute video from Digital Forensics Corporation, and this explains sextortion and its dangers. So I'll play the video now.
A recent study by the Cyberbullying Research Center found that more than 5% of teens have been victims of sextortion. Only 1/3 of them have told their parents. If you're like most parents, you're probably unaware of teen sextortion until it's too late. A criminal will exploit a young person's sense of trust and comfort and manipulate them into sending an image or video, which sets off the victimization cycle. Sadly, this type of abuse is on the rise and can have long-lasting effects on its victims. In this video, I'll tell you what teen sextortion is, how to talk to your teens about it, and what to do if you or someone you know is a victim. Sextortion is the online sexual exploitation of minors that occurs when someone uses nude or sexual images of someone else to blackmail them into something specific, like sending more photos or videos, performing certain sex acts, or paying a ransom of money or a gift card. A range of negative consequences can result from sextortion, including hopelessness, anxiety, depression, and long-lasting fear and mistrust. 1 in 3 children engaged in suicide attempts, threatened suicide, or engaged in self-harm following their victimization. Sextortion can start on any website, app, or video game where people meet and communicate. Most of the time, criminals pose as children and reach out via social media or gaming apps, pretending to be romantically interested. They eventually trick their victim into sharing explicit pictures or videos, and then use those images to obtain money or more content. In some cases, the perpetrator will groom their victim over many days or weeks. He or she may share an intimate picture or image and ask for another in exchange, thus beginning the cycle. So how can you talk to your teen about sextortion? Well, you might ask them what they know about sextortion and if they've ever received any images or content that they didn't request, and ask what they would do if they found themselves in that situation. If a criminal targets them, let them know that they can always come to you and they won't get in trouble for speaking up. Encourage them to block any unknown requests or strange messages, and make sure that they understand that sharing intimate photos or videos of themselves or anyone else is not a good idea. In the event that they are targeted, remind them that they will recover from whatever embarrassment occurs. Please let them know it isn't their fault. It's a very serious crime. It's been committed against them, and they are a victim. I cannot stress that enough. They are a victim of a very serious crime. Oftentimes, the perpetrator of these crimes is a grown-up who's part of a criminal organization that has spent years figuring out how to scam and manipulate children. In the event that your teen has fallen victim to a sextortion crime, make sure you report it right away. You can do so by contacting your local police station or the sextortion hotline 24/7. Go online and report directly to the FBI using the Internet Crime Complaint Center. I also recommend seeking third-party help from sextortion experts immediately. Digital investigation is the leading expert in this field, so we can help resolve the issue for good. Get in touch with us today to learn more about how we can assist you in battling teen sextortion, no matter where it occurs. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe out there.
Like the video said, there are lots of consequences with experiencing sextortion, and one of which is any parent's worst nightmare. There are so many examples of news stories like these where a teen, often a boy, meets a girl online, they flirt, send pics, and the moment the scammers receive the pictures or videos, they blackmail you. And that's exactly what happened with Daniel Lins, who was 17 years old when he took his own life. It's extremely tragic. And as a journalist who receives local police reports, I can safely say this happens very much in our community too, London and the surrounding area. Nobody is safe from scammers. Scary but unfortunate truth. The video mentions some great tips on this topic, but to reiterate some of them, remind your kids to never ever send explicit images to anybody, and that everything they share online is permanent, even if it feels temporary, like a Snapchat picture that they send to a close friend. Reassure them that they can always be honest with you and trust you, and to have open discussions with them about the consequences of sending inappropriate photos online, and also share your concerns as a parent with them so they understand your point of view as well. And finally, we're going to be talking about sexual and inappropriate content online, starting with bots. So bots are fake accounts that roam pretty much all the platforms. They may follow you and message you with inappropriate content or give you a link to purchase something. It's often sexual, like a sexual service like OnlyFans, or it may be non-sexual, like purchasing a product or investing in something. There are ways to spot a bot if they have a sexual profile picture, like the photo on the slide. If their bio is sexual and they have a link that offers services, all seen in the photo on the slide. And they often have a few followers, but they tend to follow a lot more people, sometimes upwards of thousands of people. So that's just some signs of a fake account or a bot. There are also some really weird mobile ads that are awfully sexual that your kids may be exposed to if they're scrolling online or playing mobile games. There's a pick your own adventure game called Episode, and some of the ads are very suggestive. This is a compilation of them, and we'll take a quick look. Pause right there. And here's another example of something your kids may see online. Among Us is a popular game. Well, it was quite popular a little while back. And here's an awfully sexualized version of it as an advertisement. It's clear that the advertisers are trying to capture attention, which they of course did with this ad, but it's also not appropriate nor related to the actual game. And here are some other ways that your kids may be exposed to inappropriate content online. Starting off with online forums where they can chat with anybody about everything and anything, have discussions. Anybody can stay anonymous in these forums as well. They may watch live streams that are not age appropriate for them or be exposed to content that's sexist, racist, or homophobic, and this can come from a variety of things. And they may participate in internet challenges like the infamous Devious Licks challenge on TikTok, where teens destroyed school bathrooms and filmed themselves while doing it and posted it online. And that's led to criminal charges and suspensions. And here are just some screenshots from some of those Devious Licks challenges. There was also a Smack Your Teacher challenge. And for the holidays, there was a TikTok challenge called Deck the Halls and Flash Your Balls. So these platforms give your kids a lot of new ideas for them. Some of them good, I suppose, but a lot of them, like these ones, not so great. In terms of tips for dealing with inappropriate content, it sucks to say, but it's inevitable that your kids will be exposed to them. So let them know what they can expect and tell them to be cautious when scrolling. You can also try kid-friendly versions of platforms like YouTube Kids to avoid having them be exposed to as much inappropriate content as possible. And finally, we will be taking a look at using social media for good, because now that we've looked at the potential dangers of social media, I really do want to take some time to talk about how kids and teens can use social media for good, because I do truly believe there are a lot of benefits to social media if we use it correctly. And here are just a few examples of what kids can do, starting off with using Instagram for photo essays or a digital photo album. So as we all know, Instagram is great for photos and videos, and you can also do a big caption if you would like. And they can really just write about anything for these photo essays. If they attended a local event, they can pretend to be a journalist. They can talk to some people, interview some people, and kind of write up a news article to be pasted into the captions. They can write biographies or autobiographies. They can do a reflection on something that happened, or a reflection on their day, or do a day in the life. They can do a behind the scenes if they're working on a big project or a play. They can also do a fictional story. They can write that up. And if they're passionate towards art, for instance, they can draw a picture that goes along with that. Or if they're into graphic design, then they can design a picture that goes along with that. So there's just a lot of options for them to practice so many skills: writing, photography, art, graphic design, and all without having to breach their privacy. They don't have to share any pictures of themselves. They don't have to use their real names. They can keep their account private just for family members and close friends. So there's a lot of options for that in terms of using using Instagram for good. In terms of using TikTok, now TikTok and Instagram are great multimedia tools. Both of them have great editing features that's free to use, so your kids can explore video editing and filming using these platforms. And I've added these two how-to videos here on TikTok and Instagram video editing as a resource. We will skip these for now, though. They're quite long, but there are video tutorials on YouTube teaching you how to use TikTok and Instagram for editing, and they're pretty interesting. And this is my personal favorite because it's very related to my own research, and that is using TikTok videos as a learning resource. On TikTok, you can find videos on literally anything, but the activism category is one that I believe is for good. So you can find videos made by youth advocating for so many things that they care about, issues and causes. For example, Black Lives Matter, mental health, LGBTQ, Indigenous culture, Indigenous issues, climate change, disability, racism, and body positivity. And we'll take a look at some of these examples through videos, and also how youth can learn from them. So here's a video by a user named Shut Up Tegan. And in this video, she talks about what is Orientalism, and it's about 3 minutes long.
What is Orientalism for the leftist who has heard the term or maybe has not heard the term and doesn't really know what it is? So initially, the term was used to describe the Western academic study of Eastern cultures. But this changed in 1978 when Palestinian author Edward Said released his book Orientalism. See, Said defined Orientalism as the contemptuous views and depictions of the East by the West. And the East, or the Orient, here is North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. See, historically and currently, Westerners tend to view the East, or the Orient, as essentially static and undeveloped. And in contrast, they view the West as developed and superior to the East. In the context of Western academia, this process of actively othering the Orient by viewing them as backwards, as savage, as static and underdeveloped, like I said, then allows these notions to be taught, studied, reproduced, all in service of imperialism. So to summarize, Western society is civilized, it's intellectual, it's developed, it's superior, and whatever's going on in the East, they need help. They're a mess. And this isn't just an academic thing as well. It is present in fiction, in the media, because, what better way to get an idea across to people than by having this dominant narrative present in the media? One way Orientalism manifests itself in the media, particularly modern media, is through techno-Orientalism. At first, you may think it's the opposite of Orientalism because techno-Orientalism seems to depict Asian countries as technologically advanced. While these portrayals are of technological advancement, they are also of these Asian societies being dystopic and intellectually primitive. Hence the trope of the Asian lady robot. So it's like, wow, look, they have all this really horrifyingly advanced technology, but they're subservient, they're static, they're unfeeling, they need our help still. Many people, myself included, believe that techno-Orientalism arose from the fear that the East was becoming too advanced and that they were going to take over. Orientalism is dangerous and it breeds things like xenophobia and xenophobia. I urge every leftist, if you have not already, to please become familiar with this concept and reflect on how you maybe have internalized it. I'll put a link to Orientalism in the comments below. I can link a couple other articles and authors as well. But there you have it, a 3-minute intro crash course on Orientalism.
And as you can see by the comments underneath the video, she sparked a lot of interest for them to learn more about the topic. People are saying, you know, thank you for sharing. It's a new term for me, but now that you pointed it out, I've noticed it a lot more. People are saying they're going to be doing more research on it. So she's definitely sparked a lot of interest in people. And using the same video as an example, TikTok comments can also be a place to share resources like Tegan did by sharing some resources in the comments. And these comments indicate that people knew more about the topic and that they're willing to share. However, a huge majority of them are not sourced, at least not properly sourced. So it's not guaranteed to be correct in any way. But it would also be a good opportunity to explain to kids that not everything online is true and to fact check on their own. And finally, TikTok can build a strong community of people who stand together. This is Brianna Dice. She's an Indigenous creator. And in this video, she asks everybody to sign a petition to support the cause of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
Allies to Indigenous people, I'm calling for your help. You need to go to the House of Commons website and you need to look up this petition. You can find it just by Googling House of Commons and then E3785. This petition is calling for the government to actually do something about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited people. There have been 231 calls for justice. We have already laid out what exactly needs to be done, what needs to be fixed, and the government has to put this in place. So what you need to do is scroll down to the bottom and you can sign the petition. Make sure once you filled it out that you have checked your email and confirmed. This is the only way to actually make sure your signature is taken. If you are not Canadian, you won't be able to sign, but I need you to share this, please.
And as you can see by the comments underneath this video, people are jumping in to help. They're saying done, that they've actually linked the petition to their link tree. And even those who are not Canadian and can't directly help by signing are sharing it so the algorithm can pick it up more and have more people view the video. Lastly, I want to talk about how the increase of artificial intelligence or AI is bettering social media. So first, it's helping to fight misinformation. Facebook has been using AI since COVID to remove false information about the coronavirus. And this includes fake news articles that are photoshopped, such as the images right there. One of them is fake, one of them is real. And the difference is isn't is changed to is. And that one little difference just gives the news story a whole new meaning. Facebook says it's been working with fact-checking organizations and uses AI to flag misinformation and then detect copies. In fact, in just 1 month in April 2020, Facebook put warning labels on 50 million pieces of content related to COVID. And here's an example of AI helping to create a safer online community. And this one totally shocked me. But AI has been used to fight drug deals happening on Snapchat. Earlier last year, Snapchat announced it was using AI and machine learning to identify drug slang and content, and then works with law enforcement to report those cases. Snapchat says that about 88% of drug-related content it uncovers is detected by its AI algorithm, so it's quite effective. And Snapchat says that when it does find drug dealing activity, it bans the account and blocks the original user from creating any more accounts. Before we close off, I'd like to share some additional resources. So on your left is a video about youth talking about social media, and it's very insightful to see how much they've experienced and how wise they are on the topic, even at such a young age. And on the right are a couple of articles on how to protect your children online and how to make social media safer for them. And I will be providing a link to the slides to hide them after the presentation.
The idea of,
In closing, I would just like to point out a couple of more points, starting that young children now have access to social media. It used to be that teenagers had access to it, but now some very, very young children do have access to that as well. And they are active on these platforms. Some of them are using it on a regular basis. I also want to point out that smart kids can be coerced. You may say that, well, my kids are smart. They know social media, they know safety, they know stranger danger. They're not going to do anything stupid. The sad thing is a lot of scammers or strangers are smarter because they're adults, and that any kid can be coerced, unfortunately. Also online, anybody can pretend to be anyone. And that's definitely a point to stress out to children, to not trust anybody on the internet and to verify their authentic self before they trust their friend or a family member, just to make sure it's really them. It's also scary to say, but you can't know everything about your kids' usage. Even if you are friends on social media platforms, your child may have more than one account that they are using and managing and talking to other people on that you may not know about. And another thing is that new platforms are constantly being developed. So what was popular yesterday may not even be popular today. Kids are always kind of one step ahead when it comes to these things. They may be on a platform doing things that you didn't know existed and didn't know that they could do before. And it's a scary feeling for sure. I also want to highlight that social media, as we've seen, hopefully in my presentation, can be used for good or bad, or good and bad, depending on the situation. They will be exposed to strangers, they will be exposed to bad content, but hopefully if they use it for good and use it for a good purpose, that they can find some meaning and purpose in that as well. Now, since our AI supports families of newcomers, I would also like to point out that as a newcomer myself, I came to Canada when I was 7 and I grew up here. I would also like to point out to newcomer parents that your kids may start using social media at an earlier age, for instance. So for me personally, I started using social media. I got Facebook when I was 10 years old. And the reason for that is because I moved to a new school, and at my old school, nobody used social media. But then at my new school, everybody in the fourth or fifth grade would have Facebook, and everybody would kind of communicate that way. And I felt pressure to get it myself as well. So if you're a newcomer parent and you and your children move to a new location and they have a new group of friends in a new environment, perhaps that's when they start using social media. You may assume that your kids are young. However, depending on what their peers are doing, they may be doing the same thing. It's always good to just check in and just check up on them and just ask what their online activity is like, just so that you're in the know of what they're doing online. And that wraps it up for my presentation for tonight. Thank you all so much for attending. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have right now. Also, please feel free to contact me at kelly.wang@ontariotechu.net. That is my email, with any questions or comments that you may have. I appreciate all of your time. And if anybody has any questions right now, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you very much.
I was just
Kelly, for
wondering.
this very
Sorry.
informative and wonderful presentation. So it seems we do have a question. So yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Are there any built-in protective systems within the social media apps to protect against scammers?
Yeah, that's a great question, Laura, and thank you so much for that question. So there are a couple of tools that you can use. Some of the apps, like the major popular platforms like YouTube, for instance, they have another separate app entirely just for kids, like YouTube Kids, where you can use that platform and have a lot more peace of mind. There's also a kid version of Twitter. I'm not sure what it's called because it's kind of just taking off right now, but there is that available. They were also discussing Instagram for kids, which is a bit controversial. However, that is in the works. In terms of actual systems within the platforms, some platforms like Twitter, for instance, you can mute certain words if you would like, and that can, I guess, sometimes help block certain information. However, it's not perfect, I would know, because I have blocked a couple of words. It doesn't do as much as you think it does. It basically says this post has a word that you blocked, and you can click on one button and bam, it's right there. So unfortunately, there's not that much in place right now, but hopefully someday, and hopefully there will be either more social media platforms designed for kids. However, that is quite controversial because there are parents who just don't want social media flat out. But either way, hopefully online safety as a whole can become better in the future. But thank you for your question.
Do you think that there's like a one best social media app for children? Because I feel like, I know you say like the benefits of that can be used for social media apps, but I feel like kids usually go on because of the feelings of FOMO, mostly, as you were saying. And so like based on that, is there a best like one app for kids? If they were to have like one app in terms of like overviewing like the safety and everything, like is there a best one?
That's a really good question, Laura. Thank you for that. It's interesting because, when I first started using Facebook at such a young age, that was kind of the it app that everybody was on. So if you asked me back then, I would have easily said Facebook. But if you ask now, with everybody being on TikTok, being so active and participating on TikTok, I would argue that it's TikTok. The thing is, all social media can be dangerous and all social media platforms can be used for good. And that's kind of the tricky thing, is where if you use it badly or unsafely, then it's going to be unsafe. Versus if you were to use it in a safe manner, it could be very beneficial. So I wouldn't say there's a perfect app or even a best app for teens and kids. I would just say, no matter what the popular app at that moment is, there are always ways to find a safe way to use it, but that also comes with dangers. Like right now on TikTok, for instance, we've seen the destructive challenges, negative influence, people can message you, cyberbullying, that's always been an issue. But there's also kind of the activism category. There's also the creative side that can be used for good. And similarly with Facebook back then, you can use it for good. You can chat with friends, you can discuss homework, but you also have strangers trying to talk to you. And that's unfortunately not something that's ever going to change.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And I see in the comments that Jeff has asked a question as well. What age do you think kids should join social media? That is a really good question, Jeff. The thing with should is that a lot of parents have different opinions on it. Some parents are more than okay with social media. They feel comfortable themselves and they're okay with their kids having and using social media starting at a young age, whereas other parents are the opposite. And I think this is something for families to discuss and kind of figure out themselves. We've seen in the presentation that the average age that a kid would start using social media is about 12.6 years old, so 12 and a half. Some parents may be okay with that. Some parents may feel uncomfortable. I think it's a matter of personal opinion or family opinion in this case. There are definitely benefits of waiting to use social media. For example, you're more mature, you recognize dangerous content more, you recognize stranger danger more. However, with so many youth being so young and already starting to use social media, there is that FOMO, fear of missing out. There is that peer pressure of getting whatever popular app there is at a very young age. It's inevitable that kids will start using it at an earlier age than before. In terms of when they should, though, I think that's a matter of personal and family opinion. But thank you for your question. Jeff has asked another question. Do you believe schools should play a role in childhood education on social media usage? 1000%, Jeff. I definitely think that schools should educate children on social media. I think that because it's such a sensitive topic for families that maybe they're a bit shy in talking about it just because people will have different opinions. But I definitely think they should step in and do more because, things like cyberbullying, that's never going to stop. Things like dealing with stalkers, unfortunately, I don't think that's ever going to stop either. And kids are already experiencing these things. So I definitely hope that they'll do more. One of my jobs is being a research assistant at the STEAM 3D Maker Lab with Ontario Tech University. And at that job, one of the duties that we have is to educate Bachelor of Education students on how they can incorporate social media into their classrooms, specifically teaching them online safety and how to use it for good. So hopefully we'll see more of an implementation in the years and decades to come. And hopefully this presentation itself will go into an archive someday and none of these issues will exist anymore. That's the ultimate hope.
Any more questions? Well, I do actually have one question. When, Kelly, from your experience, when we can find that thin line between safety and observation and freedom. So at the same time, you would like to give your kids freedom. At the same time, you are, very conservative about their safety. And so how you can make that balance, please?
I love that question so much, Haitham, and I really wanted to dedicate a section to that actually, but I felt like that was just so, different for every family that I didn't feel like my answer, even if I did research on it, I feel like I couldn't justify it enough. But that is an excellent, excellent question. If you watch your kids like a hawk, they always say, strict parents don't make good children, strict parents make good liars. And if you watch your kids' social media usage like a hawk, I don't think that's going to benefit them, but that's just a personal opinion, I guess. And you're right, there is definitely a very fine line where you want to protect your kids, but you can't protect your kids from everything. And with social media and new concerns and new everything kind of piling on all the time, that line is constantly shifting. It also depends on what your kids want to do on social media. So do you have an older teenager that uses social media to follow their favorite poets and, cat accounts, versus do you have a 13-year-old that talks to older boys and shares images that you're afraid that they might share? So it's also very different for them as well. I think that having an interest in your kids' social media usage is a crucial point, just to let them know that you, A, care about them, you care about their safety, you care about their usage, and that B, you are, supportive of them using it as safely as possible. You don't have to create fake accounts to stalk them per se, but it is important to kind of lay out the boundaries right off the bat and monitor them through them in a lot of ways, just to make sure that they're safe. And also recognize that kids change, platforms change, content changes, everything changes over time. So what you're doing today to kind of protect your kids may not even work in a week. And that is the scary part that unfortunately nobody has an answer to on how to navigate the system. But I appreciate the question a lot. It's just a bit tough to answer.
Well, thank you very much for this answer. And I do have a follow-up question, if I may. Also, let's assume the worst case scenario, and somebody find that their kids are involved in a bad content over the social media, several aspects, and as you mentioned, there is a lot of aspects. So let's assume that, okay, I find that one of my kids, God forbid, he's or she's involved. What is the best approach to handle such situation?
Absolutely. I think that if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of reverse answer this. I think the worst thing that you can do is flip out. We've seen in the presentation of, sextortion as an example of, and the absolute dire consequences that it can cause. I think that no matter what your child does, at the end of the day, they are your child, they are a minor, they will make mistakes. It's just that mistakes online are so much more permanent and terrifying in a lot of ways. It's important to support them through anything and to reassure them that all will be okay. And depending on what situation they get themselves into, there are different approaches to take as well. Sextortion, for example, call the police immediately and report it to them. The police will they'll issue a warning for surrounding communities to recognize what's happening in their community and that they could be targeted. And they may work with technology agencies to kind of trace as much as possible to see if they can find the perpetrator. If they're involved in a scam and they gave your credit card away, lock that credit card immediately and see if there's a way to work out with the bank. If they communicate with strangers online and you find out about that, block them. Maybe not restrict per se. Well, perhaps restrict if that's what you would like to do. But just remind your kids that. Just remind your kids that there are so many dangers out there and that you're not trying to take away their freedom. If anything, you're trying to enhance it by making sure that they have freedom online, but using it as wisely as possible. But I think at the end of the day, just remind them that all will be okay, because if you don't remind them that, then they may resort to other actions that are very, very dire and life-changing.
I totally agree. It's a big bad world outside, and we need to be very, very careful. So in case if there is no other questions, I would like to thank you very, very, very much, Kelly Wang, for all of this, informative presentation and all of those links. Thank you. It's an honor to have you always, and we are looking forward to have you on other sessions in upcoming futures. Please.
Thank you so much, Haitham.
You are more than welcome. So everyone, today, this is wrap up our session, and thank you very much for joining us today, and be safe, be well, and looking forward to see you in another session with Rights and Responsibilities Awareness Initiative.